I'm Eric Rosales. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly. Iran faces more Israeli airstrikes and remains defiant in the face of U.S. calls for surrender. How the White House is responding. Protecting children. The U.S. Supreme Court makes an important ruling regarding so-called gender-affirming care for minors. Seeking the truth. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill hold a hearing on former President Biden's mental capacity while in office. And the great healer, Pope Leo XIV, tells the faithful how Jesus can transform our past. These stories and much more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being with us on the feast day of St. Gregory Babgarigo. We begin tonight with a major decision today from the U.S. Supreme Court, and one of the most anticipated rulings of its term. The justices upheld Tennessee's ban on so-called gender-affirming care for minors. By a vote of 6-3, the decision protects the Trump administration and other Republican state governments from legal challenges in their effort to roll back so-called gender-affirming care. 26 states have laws similar to the one in Tennessee. Chief Justice John Roberts wrote the majority opinion. He says Tennessee's law does not violate the Constitution's Equal Protection Clause. In a dissent joined by her liberal colleagues, Justice Sonia Sotomayor says the decision, quote, abandons transgender children and their families to political whims. And joining us now is Tennessee Attorney General Jonathan Skrmetti. Mr. Attorney General, thank you so much for coming on. First of all, your thoughts. Did today's ruling surprise you?
We put in a pretty strong case, and you never want to take anything for granted, but this isn't anything outside the scope of, what we thought might happen. And it's a great win for democracy. I mean, this case really says that the elected representatives of the people of Tennessee and not federal judges are the ones who ought to be making these policy calls. So this really reaffirms the heart of what America is about.
Mr. Attorney General, what sort of reaction have we seen so far in the state of Tennessee?
In Tennessee, most of the reaction has been incredibly enthusiastic. People cared a lot about this law. It was the first law up in each house of our legislature that year, passed by a bipartisan supermajority. Obviously, there are some people that are very upset by the outcome, that are really worried about what the future might bring. But overall, the reaction has been ebullient.
Yeah, speaking of the future, writing for the majority, it was Chief Justice John Roberts who emphasized that the court only decided whether this law is unconstitutional or not, but added that the court leaves questions regarding the policy to the people and their representatives. So do you think that this is resolved, or could we see a fight ahead?
Well, in America, people disagree about things, and we have these mechanisms for our disagreement. And the Constitution puts up guardrails on what our legislatures can do, what Congress can do. But within those guardrails, we disagree with each other. We fight about it. We argue. Votes are taken. And if things change over time, so be it. We govern ourselves. And this is just a way of the court reaffirming that we are a self-governing people. And we as a people are able to make these decisions about the law.
Yeah, and it was Justice Sotomayor who said that this decision abandons transgender children and their families to political whims. What's your response to that?
So if you look at the research on this, it has been politicized and infected by ideology, but it's been infected by people on the side of transitioning kids. And the WPATH research that is at the heart of all these practices is riddled with compromises as a result of outright fraud, trying to make it easier for litigators on the other side to win cases. If you look at countries that actually follow the evidence, as the Tennessee legislature did, you see countries like the United Kingdom and Sweden and Norway, which are very politically different than Tennessee, who came to this conclusion not as a result of a culture war, but because they want to protect their kids, and they have seen evidence that these radical interventions cause lifelong harm. There's huge risk and very little, if any, benefit shown by the research.
Well, Jonathan Skrmetti, thank you so much for your insight. We really appreciate it. Attorney General of Tennessee.
Thank you.
We have new information tonight on the National Eucharistic Pilgrimage. Organizers have canceled a planned festival in Los Angeles over security concerns. The pilgrimage ends this Sunday, the Feast of Corpus Christi. Originally, there was going to be a festival after the closing Mass, but after a series of protests sparked by ICE raids in the city, the organization has decided to cancel the festival. Jason Shanks, president of the National Eucharistic Congress, released a statement saying in part, quote, "Based upon our conversations with LAPD this week, we feel confident that this new plan ensures the safety of all involved while still bringing the Eucharistic presence of our Lord to downtown LA. We trust in the Lord's divine providence and are confident that He still has many graces and blessings in store." Now to our other top story. Fighting in the Middle East carries into its 6th day, and although Israel seems to have the upper hand, Iran is refusing to surrender. In his first appearance since Friday, Iran's supreme leader released a recorded message today rebuking President Trump's calls for Iran to surrender. The country's deputy foreign minister, speaking to CNN, threatened violence against the United States if they get involved.
If the Americans decide to get involved militarily, we have no choice but to retaliate wherever we find the targets necessary to be acted upon.
Meanwhile, the number of casualties continues to climb, and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Iran is running out of options.
We control the skies over Tehran. We are striking the Ayatollah's regime with tremendous force. We are striking the nuclear weapons, the missiles, the headquarters, the symbols of the regime.
And of course, the question on everyone's mind is, will the U.S. get involved? President Donald Trump says that he may do it or may not do it, and that nobody knows what he's going to do. When asked today whether the U.S. is considering striking Iran's nuclear facilities. For the very latest, let's check in with White House correspondent Owen Jensen. Owen.
Eric, good evening to you. President Donald Trump held multiple news conferences today, one on the South Lawn during a flag raising, one in the Oval Office alongside a famous soccer team. Many questions on Iran, and President Trump says Iran's got a lot of trouble.
It was such a shame. They were so close. You know, Iran was very close to signing what would have been a very good agreement for them. And maybe that could still happen, I guess. You know, they do want to come and see us. They want to see me in the White House. That's a big statement. But it's very late.
Meanwhile, central Israel, firefighters combat large blazes after Iran launched a new barrage of missiles. And this morning on the South Lawn, the president is asked whether he's given the Iranians an ultimatum.
You could say so. Huh? They know what's up. Maybe you could call it the ultimate ultimatum, right?
Iran's supreme leader warned that any military involvement by the Americans would cause irreparable damage. President Trump also said he only wants one thing.
And I've been saying that for 20 years. I've been saying it as a civilian who got a lot of publicity. People would cover it. Very simply, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. That's it. It's not a question of anything else. And if you did, you wouldn't have much of a country because they would use it on us, and they'd use it on other people, and they'd be a terror all over the world.
President Trump says it's not too late for Iran to give up its nuclear program as he continues to weigh direct U.S. involvement in Israel's military operations aimed at crushing Tehran's nuclear program. The president also confirmed Iran reached out.
I said it's very late. You know? I said it's very late to be talking. We may meet. I don't know. There's a big difference between now and a week ago.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the Pentagon has provided possible options to President Trump as he decides any next steps on Iran. Today, Hegseth was on Capitol Hill.
My job, our job, Chairman and I, at all times, is to make sure the president has options and is informed of what those options might be and what the ramifications of those options might be.
I appreciate that.
President Trump also says Russian President Vladimir Putin has offered to serve as a mediator with Iran. Trump told Putin to solve his own conflict with Ukraine. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you so much, Owen. Pope Leo is weighing in on the conflicts in Iran as well, warning the faithful of the dangers of war.
The heart of the Church is broken by the cries that rise from places of war, in particular from Ukraine, from Iran, from Israel, from Gaza. Therefore, in the name of human dignity and international law, I repeat to those responsible what Pope Francis used to say: war is always a defeat. And with Pius XII, nothing is lost with peace. Everything can be lost with war.
On Capitol Hill, a bipartisan group of House lawmakers have introduced a war powers bill to prohibit U.S. involvement in Iran as its conflict with Israel intensifies. Representatives Thomas Massey of Kentucky and Ro Khanna of California co-authored the resolution. Now, both are trying to make the resolution privilege, which can allow lawmakers to circumvent leadership and force a House vote. President Donald Trump says that he'll continue to push Iran to negotiate a deal. We have a lot more still ahead to come on EWTN News Nightly, including fireworks on Capitol Hill as Senate Republicans attempt to uncover details on former President Biden's mental capacity while in office. Also, the Augustine Institute is offering a new pathway for hopeful Catholic teachers. Find out what makes it different than pursuing a master's degree anywhere else. Welcome back. Senate Republicans are moving forward full steam ahead with their investigation into the alleged cover-up of former President Joe Biden's reported mental decline while in the White House. At today's first hearing, Republicans claim Biden's inner circle and the media hid his condition, undermining the U.S. Constitution.
Every participant in the cover-up, from the media to the cabinet, is jointly and severally liable for what may very well be the greatest deception in our nation's history.
Republicans are demanding answers.
We need to know who was in charge during the last months of the Biden administration. Was it his wife, his chief of staff, nameless others? None of these people were elected by the American people.
Many Democrats on the Judiciary Committee did not attend the hearing. Ranking Democrat Senator Dick Durbin did make a statement before leaving, accusing Republicans of conducting a fishing expedition.
Instead of exercising this constitutional oversight duty, my Republican colleagues are holding this hearing. Apparently, armchair diagnosing former President Biden is more important than the issues of grave concern.
Another Democrat who attended briefly gave his own definition of a cover-up.
And I'm going to tell you what I think is a cover-up. I think this big, beautiful bill done by reconciliation, where by decision of the majority.
Former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer, who served in President Trump's first term, testified the media is to blame.
Legacy media failed the American people. They failed to do their job. Many, rightly so, believe the media in this country is culpable in covering up the obvious decline of the 46th president of the United States.
Another witness called into question testified about the president's extensive use of an auto pen, including for bill signing and other important documents.
Once the president's signature is copied and loaded into the auto pen, the machine can sign documents as the president himself would. To be blunt, by using the auto pen, anyone can sign documents as the president himself.
Now, this hearing is the start of what Republicans promised to be a comprehensive investigation. Former White House staffers and even President Biden's doctor have been asked to testify in the near future. Well, a new 2-year program for recent college graduates is focused on future Catholic school teachers. Teachers for Christ is a new in-residence program developed in part by the Augustine Institute. It forms students in all subject areas so that they're ready to use the practices of Catholic education. The first group of candidates, which was around 12, began classes earlier this month. After 2 years, those who complete the program will receive a master's degree in Catholic education. And for more on this, we turn to Dr. Jeffrey Lehman, Director of the Teachers for Christ. Dr. Lehman, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, why did you start this program?
We started this program because there's a growing number of schools that are participating in the renewal of Catholic education. So they're looking for the kind of formation that takes the Catholic Church as the foundation for the work that they do as educators, and that looks to sacred scripture and the teachings and traditions of the Church to guide that work. So we're trying to prepare both teachers and administrators to serve in those renewal schools.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that students don't actually receive when they're pursuing a master's degree in education from a secular or even a Catholic college or university, correct?
Yes, that's right. And in fact, long before what currently serves as education programs, whether they're at Catholic schools or at secular schools, there was the Catholic Church educating for centuries. And so what we're doing is we're taking our cues from the way the church taught, looking at some great moments in that history, and trying to bring about a creative retrieval of what Catholic education has been through the centuries, and then using that to prepare our students who will be teachers and administrators for the work that's before them.
And the first group had about a dozen members in the program. Tell us, what's the ideal candidate? What are you looking for?
That's right. There are 12 students in the cohort, and we began recently. We're looking for students who are at least generally aware of what's going on in the renewal. They know that things are afoot in Catholic education, that there's a great return to all that has been good throughout the centuries in Catholic education. And we're also looking for younger students, those who are just out of college, or maybe they have a year or two of teaching experience, so that they can receive this formation and then step in and start doing the work.
Wonderful. And I understand that the program actually teaches students in a variety of different subjects. So what are some of the classes that these teachers will likely take?
Yeah, certainly. Well, the classes range. All students will take a course in Christian anthropology. So we'll look at what it is to be a human being, what human nature is, and the way that we are persons made in the image of God, who is himself personal. One course later on in the program focuses on the history of Catholic education, and then there's a course dedicated to the art of teaching. They have a theological foundation, so all of the students, 1/3 of their courses are theology foundation courses. And then after they've completed that theological foundation and then their core, then they can look very practically in the last 4 credits for rounding out things, making it as practical as possible.
Well, Dr. Jeffrey Lehman, Program Director for Teachers for Christ, just want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Folks, take a look at this next video. One of Indonesia's most active volcanoes erupted. You're looking at the eruption of Mount Lawatobi Laki-Laki. It sent massive ash of cloud into the sky, spewing ash more than 6 miles away. Dozens of flights in and out of Bali were canceled, affecting tourists, and it forced dozens of residents living in 2 nearby villages to evacuate their homes. Up next on EWTN News Nightly, feeling stuck or trapped at a dead end, hear Pope Leo's advice on how our Lord can help us in the toughest of circumstances. Plus, conditions on the ground are dark in Ukraine and other troubled regions in the world. Find out how a prominent church organization is stepping in to help the most vulnerable. Pope Leo XIV reminds the faithful that Jesus can heal the past and transform our history.
Chiediamo di tornare ad abitare nel cuore di Cristo.
At the weekly talk, the Holy Father invited everyone to reflect on those moments when we feel stuck or trapped in a dead end. The Pope also warned the pilgrims not to become discouraged or fall into spiritual apathy. He encouraged them to ask the Lord for the gift of understanding and to give voice to their desire for healing. The Pontifical Foundation Aid to the Church in Need has presented their annual donation report in Rome today. The organization helps Christians in need and those who are suffering persecution around the world. EWTN News Vatican correspondent Valentina Di Donato has more.
What touched me a lot is that to look at war in the TV is totally different from meeting the people who are involved in war.
Father Anton Laser, the ecclesiastical assistant of the global Catholic charity Aid to the Church in Need, is responsible for the spiritual life of the charity. He travels to many of the war-torn countries where the foundation operates on the ground. One of his latest stops, Ukraine. He described his experience with some of those wounded in the war.
You see these young people, they have lost a leg or an arm, or they are blind.
Father Laser also told us a heartbreaking story of one injured soldier.
When he was in the hospital, he had a face like this. He couldn't see, he couldn't talk. So he showed to the sister, please open my eyes, so that he could realize if he's still able to see. And he told us he was never that grateful as when he realized he still is able to see.
Aid to the Church in Need began after the Second World War with benefactors taking action to help suffering Christians, even those who were their wartime enemies. A foundation founded in the grace of reconciliation. And years later, Aid to the Church in Need became a papal foundation with President Cardinal Mauro Piacenza, appointed by Pope Benedict XVI in 2011. Today, the foundation presented their annual report in Rome. In 2024 alone, they received €139.3 million to help Christians in need in 137 countries, with Ukraine receiving the most aid.
We have
Regina Lynch, the executive president of Aid to the Church in Need, explained why.
Ukraine was always one of the countries which we helped a lot, just given the sheer size of the Catholic Church there. The priests receive mass stipends that are sent to us from our benefactors, and we give what we call an existence help to the sisters. So it's a living for the sisters.
Father Laser recounted more of the stories of people who have survived the war.
We met sisters in Ternopil and in Lviv, and they took care of people who had no homes anymore. One lady, she lived on the street, and the sisters, they had no room anymore. But the sisters saw her, she had black feet, and was in a terrible condition. And she just went home and took a volunteer to take her in her house. And this lady, after 3 months, she looked totally different. And she said, the sisters gave back to me my dignity.
The efforts to respond to the most pressing issues on the ground is no small feat. It takes community action, prayers, donations, and people on the ground. But the reward is great. By reaching out to those in need, they help strengthen the Church and keep the faith alive. In Rome, Valentina Di Donato for EWTN News Nightly.
Wow. May we continue to pray for all the victims of wars. We want to thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Eric Rosales. Have yourself a wonderful night. Y vaya con Dios.